Hey Reddit. I never thought I'd be one of those people writing a story like this, but here we are. I've been married for 6 years to my wife, Emily. We met in college. She was the loud, confident one who could walk into any room and make it feel like a movie scene, and I was the quiet, steady guy who balanced her out. At least that's how she used to describe us. For a long time, things were good. Like, really good. We had our routines, Friday night takeout and Netflix, lazy Sunday mornings with coffee in bed, dumb inside jokes that no one else got. She'd tease me about how predictable I was, and I'd joke that she had enough chaos for both of us. But around 8 months ago, something started to feel off. At first, it was small stuff. She started spending more time on her phone, not the normal scrolling through TikTok kind, but the kind where she'd tilt the screen away when I walked by. I'd ask who she was texting, and she'd laugh it off with, "Oh, just Lisa from work." Except I'd never heard of Lisa before. She started going out more, too. Girls' nights, she said, or late meetings. I didn't think much of it at first. I trusted her. I wanted to trust her. But then she started snapping at me over the smallest things. If I asked if she wanted dinner, she'd say, "Why do you always ask me that like I can't make decisions myself?" It wasn't just the attitude. It was like she was slowly becoming a different person. Colder, meaner, distant in a way I couldn't explain. I told myself maybe it was stress. Maybe she was just tired, overwhelmed. Everyone goes through phases, right? I wish I'd listened to my gut sooner. Because looking back now, that's when everything started unraveling. Part 2. The first red flag that hit hard. It was a Thursday night, one of those long, dull evenings where you just want to eat, shower, and zone out. Emily said she was heading out for a quick drink with some coworkers. That wasn't unusual, but what was unusual was how she got ready. She spent nearly an hour doing her makeup. Full face, red lipstick, the one she only wore on date nights. She even put on perfume, the one I got her last Christmas that she said was too strong for everyday use. I remember joking, "Wow, must be an important drink," and she snapped back, "It's called looking presentable, not everything's about you." That stung, but I let it go. She left around 7:30, said she'd be home by 10. At 11:45, I texted, "Hey, you good? Getting late." No response. At 12:30, I called. Straight to voicemail. I started to worry. Then, finally, around 1:15, I heard the door unlock. She stumbled in, half laughing, smelling like alcohol, and not the light, one glass of wine kind. I asked, trying to stay calm, "You said you'd be home by 10. She rolled her eyes and slurred, "My phone died." Stop being controlling. That word hit me, controlling. I'd never been called that before. I wasn't the jealous type. I'd always given her space, trusted her completely. But something in her tone, it was defensive, almost rehearsed. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. When I brought it up again, she sighed dramatically and said, "You're overreacting. I can't even go out without you turning it into a drama." And that's when the pit in my stomach started to grow. Not because she came home late, not because she drank too much, but because for the first time in 6 years, I realized she didn't care how it made me feel. Part 3. The strange text messages. A couple of weeks later, I saw something that finally cracked the surface. Emily had left her phone on the counter while she was getting ready for work. Normally, I wouldn't even think to touch it. We'd always had this unspoken trust. But that morning, it kept lighting up, over and over. At first, I ignored it. But after the third buzz, curiosity, and that gnawing pit in my stomach got the better of me. I glanced over. The notification preview read, "Last night was amazing face-blowing kiss." I froze. My first thought was, no. It has to be a friend joking around. Maybe a meme. Maybe something innocent. Then it buzzed again. "Can't stop thinking about you." And just like that, the air went out of the room. My hands went cold. My chest felt tight. I didn't open the phone. I couldn't. The preview alone was enough. I remember standing there, staring at that little rectangle, my whole world suddenly feeling wrong. Emily came out of the bedroom, hair still damp, humming like nothing was wrong. She saw me near the counter and immediately reached for her phone. Too quickly. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to sound normal. She blinked, paused for a beat too long, then smiled that practiced smile of hers. "Yeah, just work stuff. We're planning a project." I nodded, but I knew. God, I knew. That entire day at work, I felt sick. My mind kept replaying those two messages like a broken record. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach dropped. When I got home that evening, she was acting extra sweet, cooking dinner, making small talk, kissing me on the cheek like old times. It almost felt like she could sense I was slipping away, so she was trying to reel me back in. But her phone? Always face down, always locked, always silent. That was the day I started paying attention. Really paying attention. Part 4. The Hidden Clues. After that day, I started noticing the little things, the ones I'd ignored before because I didn't want to believe them. Like the way she suddenly became obsessed with her appearance. Not in a self-care way, but in a calculated, almost performative way. New outfits she never wore before. Random trips to the salon. And always leaving her phone in the other room when she was home. Then there were the disappearing hours. She'd tell me she was going to meet a friend for coffee, but I'd noticed that her car was gone for 4 or 5 hours. Or she'd say she had a late meeting at the office, but on weekends? Really? I started keeping a mental tally of these strange occurrences, almost like I was piecing together a puzzle I didn't want to exist. The final straw before I actually confronted her came from an unexpected place, our smart speaker. We had Alexa set up in the living room, mainly for music. One night, she asked it to play a playlist she said was from a friend. I remember the name clearly, Private Night's Red Heart. I froze. That wasn't a playlist she'd made herself. And the heart? Really? When I asked her about it later, she laughed, a little too sharply. Oh, that? Just something silly a friend sent me. Don't be paranoid. But I was already past paranoia. I was angry, confused, and hurt in ways I didn't even know I could feel. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept thinking. Asterisk, how long has this been going on? Who is he? How could she do this to me? Asterisk. And that's when I decided I couldn't ignore it anymore. I needed answers. Part 5. The Accidental Discovery. I never planned to actually catch her. I'm not the sneaky type. But life has a way of pushing you right into situations you never thought you'd be in. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. I had gone to the grocery store and came back early because I forgot the milk. The house was quiet, too quiet, and Emily's car was in the driveway, not unusual for a weekend. As I walked in, I heard voices coming from our bedroom. I froze. There was laughter, low and familiar, and then a man's voice. My heart slammed into my chest. I crept closer, my stomach twisting. Peeking around the corner, I saw her. Asterisk, there he was. Asterisk, on our bed. Not a friend. Not a joke. A complete stranger who I didn't know existed. Emily spotted me immediately. Her face went pale for a split second, then hardened. Babe, she started, but her voice faltered. I didn't wait for excuses. I turned around and left the room, my hands shaking, my mind racing. Every betrayal I'd suspected over the past months suddenly made sense. The late nights, the hidden phone, the weird playlist, it was all true. I spent the rest of the day in the living room, silent, staring at the wall, trying to make sense of the whirlwind that had just landed on my lap. By the time evening came, she approached me, trying to explain. And oh boy, the explanations were something else. Part 6. The Confrontation. When she finally cornered me in the living room, she was defensive from the start. Arms crossed, lips pursed, like she was preparing for battle. I can explain, she began, her voice sharp and rehearsed. It's not what it looks like. I wanted to laugh, bitterly. Not what it looks like. Emily, he's on our bed. Our bed. How is that not exactly what it looks like? She waved her hand dismissively. Okay, fine, yes. But it's complicated. You don't understand. I've been feeling trapped. Lonely. You're always working, always tired. I needed attention. I felt a surge of anger, so hot it burned through my chest. Attention? You cheated on me. You lied to me for months. Her eyes flickered, and she went on the offensive. You think you're perfect? You're boring. You're predictable. You don't see me. I told you I was unhappy, and you just ignored me. It was like every accusation she ever had against me suddenly came flooding out, but it wasn't about us anymore. It was all about her. And her entitlement. I tried to stay calm, to reason. Emily, feeling lonely does not justify betraying someone. You had a choice, and you made the worst one. She huffed, looking away, muttering something about not wanting to fight. But her words were empty. I knew she was lying through her teeth. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I kept replaying every moment, every little sign I'd ignored, and every excuse she'd ever given me. The weight of it was suffocating. Part 7. The Emotional Fallout. The days after the confrontation were brutal. I was a mess of anger, sadness, and disbelief. I'd never felt so betrayed in my life. Every corner of our apartment felt tainted, every object a reminder of her lies. I'd catch myself staring at the bed, the scene of the betrayal, and my stomach would churn. I couldn't look at her without seeing him, without hearing that smug, familiar laugh echo in my mind. I tried to talk to friends, but words failed me. How do you explain that the person you trusted most in the world, the person you built a life with, could lie to your face and throw away years like it meant nothing? Anger came in waves. Sometimes I'd want to scream at her, to shake her, to demand every detail, but I knew it wouldn't help. Other times, the sadness was overwhelming, a quiet ache that followed me everywhere, even in the middle of the day at work. Sleep was impossible. I kept replaying everything, the hidden texts, the late nights, the lies, over and over, like some cruel mental movie I couldn't pause. And yet, there was a strange clarity emerging amid the chaos. Amid the heartbreak, I started seeing the reality for what it was. This marriage, the version of it I thought I knew, didn't exist anymore. She had destroyed it, piece by piece. Part 8. Trying to understand her. Even in the midst of all that anger, I found myself trying to make sense of it. Humans are wired for closure, right? I needed to understand why she did it, even if I didn't like the answer. I asked her questions, lots of them. Not calmly, mind you. I was still raw, barely holding it together. Was it just him? I demanded one night, pacing the living room. Or have there been others? Emily sighed, rolling her eyes like I was a child throwing a tantrum. You think I'm keeping a checklist of my conquests? God, you're dramatic. I pressed harder. No, I just need to know the truth. She leaned back on the couch, crossing her arms, and smirked. Fine. Yes, it's him. But don't act so high and mighty. You've never exactly been romantic. You've got routines and habits, but do you even see me? You've been ignoring me for months, maybe years. Her words cut deep, and for a split second, I questioned myself. Had I been too absorbed in work? Too routine? But that doubt was fleeting. Her betrayal wasn't justified. Nothing could justify it. Still, I kept asking. Each answer she gave, half-truths, full lies, excuses, and blame, felt like punches. But at the same time, I realized something. This wasn't just about her. It was about who she really is, and the person I thought I knew had been hiding behind a mask. The realization stung more than the betrayal itself. I had married a stranger. Part 9. The Spiral of Anger and Sadness. After trying to understand her, I fell into a spiral, alternating between pure rage and crushing sadness. Some days, I wanted to throw everything in the apartment against the wall. Other days, I'd just sit on the couch, staring at nothing, feeling hollow. Even mundane things became unbearable. Seeing her brush her hair in the morning, laughing at something on her phone, cooking dinner like nothing had happened. Every little act was a reminder of the betrayal. I caught myself replaying conversations in my head, dissecting every word she ever said. "You're fine" suddenly sounded suspicious. "I love you" felt like a joke. Every memory twisted into proof of lies I hadn't recognized at the time. I started isolating myself. I didn't want friends to see me like this, angry, shattered, and confused. Work became a refuge, but even there, I couldn't focus. My mind kept drifting back to her face, the glint of satisfaction she had when she thought I wouldn't find out. At night, sleep was a stranger. I'd lie awake, heart racing, replaying images that refused to fade. His hands, her laughter, the bed that had been our sanctuary. Somewhere in that spiral, I realized something terrifying. The person I trusted most had deliberately broken my world. And no amount of anger or sadness could change that. Part 10. Seeking advice and support. After weeks of stewing in my own head, I realized I couldn't handle this alone. I turned to the one place I knew I could be brutally honest without judgment, Reddit. I posted on a relationship advice subreddit, pouring out everything, the hidden texts, the lies, the betrayal. I didn't hold back. I wanted to see if anyone else had gone through something like this, if anyone had survived it and come out on the other side. The responses were overwhelming. Some people told me to leave immediately, that this was a deal breaker and there was no saving a relationship built on lies. Others advised therapy, both for me and maybe even for us as a couple, to process what had happened. A few shared stories eerily similar to mine. The slow realization, the secret messages, the double life. What struck me most wasn't the advice itself, but the validation. I wasn't overreacting. I wasn't imagining things. This wasn't a minor betrayal. It was a full-blown, life-altering breach of trust. Talking to friends in real life helped too. Their support grounded me when my emotions were swinging between rage and despair. They reminded me that my feelings were normal, that I deserved honesty, loyalty, and respect, and that none of this was my fault. For the first time in weeks, I felt a little less alone. Not better, not healed, but a tiny bit stronger. Part 11. The Breaking Point. The breaking point came one Friday night. Emily had gone out to a work event, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I stayed home, drinking cheap beer, scrolling through my phone, trying not to think about what I already knew. Around 11 p.m., she stumbled in, laughing loudly, perfume hitting me like a wall. I could smell him on her, faint, but unmistakable. My blood boiled. "Emily," I said, my voice quieter than I intended but laced with venom. "Do you even realize what you've done?" She looked at me, rolling her eyes, as if my feelings were an inconvenience. "Oh, here we go again. You're just being dramatic." I snapped. I don't even remember exactly what I said, but I know I yelled, I screamed, I let all of the frustration, betrayal, and heartbreak out in one raw burst. She shouted back, of course, blaming me, accusing me of not seeing her needs, twisting everything around like she always did. That night, for the first time, I truly accepted it. Whatever remnants of our marriage were left were gone. There was no fixing this. The trust was shattered. The person I thought I knew was gone. I realized that staying under the same roof was poison for both of us. I couldn't let her manipulate, lie, and destroy my sense of self any longer. Something had to give. Part 12. Making the decision. After that night, I spent days thinking, pacing, replaying every moment, and weighing my options. Counseling? Forgiveness? Trying to rebuild what was already ruined? The more I reflected, the more I realized that reconciliation wasn't an option. Not because I lacked love, I did, but because trust had been obliterated, and without trust, love can't survive. I made the decision to separate, not out of anger alone, though that was part of it, but because I needed to protect myself. I couldn't allow her actions to define the rest of my life. I moved out into a friend's spare room for a few weeks. The first night was hell. The silence, the emptiness, the lingering feeling of betrayal. But each day, I felt a little lighter. I was reclaiming myself, bit by bit. I contacted a lawyer to understand my rights, started organizing finances, and planned a conversation with Emily about dividing our life fairly. Cold, practical steps that gave me a sense of control I hadn't felt in months. It hurt, deeply, to realize that the life I thought I had built with her was over. But I also knew that ending it on my own terms was the first step toward healing. Part 13. Facing the reality. Once the separation became official, at least in my mind, I was forced to confront the reality of what had happened. This wasn't a nightmare I could wake up from. It was real. Emily had cheated. I had been lied to. Our marriage was gone. At first, I wanted to avoid everything that reminded me of her. I changed routines, started taking different routes to work, deleted photos from my phone. I even avoided mutual friends for a while because every interaction felt like a reminder of the life I had lost. But facing reality also meant looking inward. I had to process my anger, my sadness, my sense of betrayal. I journaled. I ran. I spent hours just sitting in silence, letting the emotions wash over me. Slowly, the raw, sharp pain dulled into a dull ache, one I could live with without losing my mind. It was during these moments of reflection that I began to understand the real lesson. This wasn't about me being inadequate or her being unseen. This was about honesty, boundaries, and integrity. And she had chosen to ignore all of that. Acceptance didn't come quickly. It was a gradual process, messy, frustrating, but necessary. I realized that I couldn't change what happened, but I could control what I did next. Part 14. Rebuilding myself. Once the dust settled and I had faced reality, I focused on rebuilding myself. It wasn't easy. There were days I felt hollow, like a part of me had been ripped away. But slowly, I started to reclaim my life. I picked up hobbies I had abandoned, running again, playing guitar, even cooking elaborate meals just for myself. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected, people who reminded me that I wasn't defined by her betrayal. Therapy helped more than I expected. Talking through the anger, the grief, and the lingering self-doubt gave me tools to process my emotions instead of letting them consume me. I realized that healing wasn't linear. Some days were leaps forward, some days felt like sliding back, but progress, no matter how small, was still progress. Most importantly, I began to rebuild my sense of self-worth. I remembered who I was before her lies became my world. I realized I didn't need validation from someone who chose to hurt me. I was enough, flawed, yes, but whole in a way she had tried to make me forget. For the first time in months, I laughed without guilt. I smiled without caution. I was learning to live for me again. Part 15, Reflection and Advice. Looking back now, I realized that this experience, as painful and chaotic as it was, taught me more about myself than I ever imagined. I learned that betrayal doesn't define me. My response to it does. I learned that trust, once broken, can't be half repaired, and that protecting your own heart is not selfish, it's necessary. To anyone out there who might be in a similar situation, pay attention to the signs. Trust your instincts. Don't ignore the little red flags hoping they'll go away. They rarely do. And if you find yourself betrayed, allow yourself to feel everything. The anger, the sadness, the confusion. You can't heal without acknowledging the pain. But also, know that life goes on. You can rebuild. You can find strength you didn't know you had. And eventually, you can smile again without feeling guilty, laugh again without hesitation, and trust again with someone who deserves it. I don't know what the future holds for me romantically, and honestly, I'm not rushing. For now, I'm focused on me, and that's enough. To anyone reading this, value yourself, protect yourself, and never settle for lies disguised as love.